and sort of advocacy there. And I was kind of interested in sort of, I guess the Millennium Development Goals sort of don't necessarily explicitly kind of address the peace issue, but right now this week is also sort of International Peace Day. And I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit sort of the connections that maybe should be made or the connections that have been made sort of between peace and the Millennium Development Goals.
Martin Luther King Jr. talked about the difference between negative peace and positive peace. He said negative peace is where there's no outright conflict, but there's underlying tension and anxiety. He said positive peace can only be built on brotherhood and justice. So this idea of what so often we call peace in this world, it really just means the cessation of violence. But the roots of peace are still there, how people feel inside themselves, the desperation of people. And anytime you have large groups of desperate people, you have a powder keg. So you might say we're at peace now because nobody's shooting. But once again, old think. New think is realizing that unless we deal with these causal issues of war and violence, which is large groups of desperate people, that's the powder keg. So that's the connection. This is about building the true foundations of peace. It's about justice and brotherhood, without which, at the very least, we're in a cessation of conflict for a while. Excuse me, we're in a pause in conflict, a never true cessation of conflict. We'll never transcend conflict. We'll just put it on pause button, as long as we do not address the huge amounts of unnecessary human suffering that forms the petri dish out of which so many of these group pathologies emerge. Desperate people are far more vulnerable to ideological capture by genuinely psychotic ideologies.
Thank you.
Thank you.